Some shows I have not seen, but we are now officially into the DCI 2026 season. As this past weekend, a ton of groups have unveiled their show, they've unveiled their uniforms, they've unveiled the props, and they've even done the actual show. Some of them, not the full show, but a decent amount of them so I can get a good enough read on what each group is trying to do, how well they're achieving right now, and with that being said, let's just get right on into it. Starting off with 20th to 16th place, I have Genesis in 20th, 19th is Cascades, 18th is Academy, 17th is Spartans, and 16th is Crossman. Now, these five I have not seen, so I'm just taking a guess here. Based off of show previews in terms of what the groups have unveiled, based on the uniforms, and based on what I have been hearing. Genesis, I've heard a little bit, their clips, they're fine, but I don't know if they have enough of the wheels to go past 20th here. Cascades, I've heard nothing about, I haven't seen them either. And I unfortunately did not get to see Drums Along the Rockies, so don't hate me. Academy don't know too much about it this year. The Spartans, however, I know a little bit. And this is the Spartans' first year in world class. And from what I've heard from staff, from the kids, from people that have seen the Spartans rehearse, the Spartans absolutely could pull off 17th, if not a little higher, due to they were absolutely destroying an open class. And even before they moved to world class, I think last year the Spartans made like 18th. So it is not out of the realm of possibility for the Spartans to make 17th this year, from what I have heard from staff and everyone around them. Crossman at 16th, I feel like this is going to be one of the most improved cores from last year. There's more coming that's also improved. We'll get to them. But just from the vibe I get from people that have been around the Crossman group, from the staff, and from people that have kind of heard glimpses of what they've been doing, I just feel like they have a lot more momentum than what they had last year. Last year, I just felt like the show just lacked a lot. And granted, they went back to the OG uniforms last year, which I really enjoyed. However, I just think last year they were lacking a lot of meat on the bone to do more. And so, with that, I do believe this year is going to be a massive step forward for Crossman to be able to get back into finals contention. With that being said, I'm going to show you all my 15th to 10th place rankings. So here we go. 15th is Music City, 14th Pacific Crest, 13th Colts, 12th Madison Scouts, 11th Spirit of Atlanta, 10th is Blue Knights. I also apologize, this is blurry. Don't hate me. Now, I believe this is going to be a very exciting year for Music City because they have Music City Mystique that is doing the percussion this year. If you don't know, City Mystique is one of the most decorated WGI groups, and that percussion every year is just on fire. Now, granted, they don't have the membership from Mystique here in Music City because a lot of them march Phantom, a lot of them march Crown, some of them march Boston. So obviously they're going to go to their respective groups. But a lot of them could go to Music City. And also, I did not know this, but the Mandarins brass guy, rest in peace to Mandarins, but the brass captain is also at Music City as well. So take all of those new pieces that are coming in for Music City, and based on the show they had last year going to this year, I legitimately feel like Music City absolutely makes 15th because they have a lot of good things going for them. They have a lot of pieces going in that direction. I just have not seen the show yet. But from what I've heard from the preview, from what I've heard from the seen from the uniforms, they look like they could absolutely compete for 15th. They could even try to make 13th. Who knows? Speaking of which, for 14th and 13th, I have Pacific Crest and Colts. And I'm also going to mention Madison Scout too, because I feel like these three are going to absolutely be fighting it out for 12. Because the Mandarins are not competing this year, it leaves a gap for who could get into finals. And I also believe that the Colts are kind of taking a downturn. Don't hate me. But from what I've heard with Pacific Crest, their percussion is really, really good this year. From the pieces I've heard from Pacific Crest, they sound incredible. And again, only because I've not heard the Colts, I feel like I'm confident right now to put Pacific Crest at 14th and put the Colts at 13th, just because right now I don't have a whole lot of information. However, with the Madison Scouts, from what I have heard, they absolutely make finals because they just unveiled the show last night. They unveiled the topic. They didn't unveil the actual show. And from what I've heard with people around Madison Scouts, they could make finals again. And again, it just comes down to when we get to semifinals, who is going to be the cleanest out of these three? Now, I just saw Spirit of Atlanta's show. It got leaked, unfortunately. I saw it this morning at the time of this recording. And let me just say, out of all of the groups that could have improved over the last 3 years, now getting into 2026, but the last 3 years, Spirit of Atlanta, they have such a huge amount of momentum going in their direction. When they came back from, being on a hiatus in 23, my goodness, they came back with a vengeance in 15th. Then the next year in 2024, they made 16th. So they took a step back. Then last year, my goodness, last year was that show insane. They got 13th, almost made finals, but the Blue Knights were just a little better than them. However, I think with what I saw last night with the uniforms, granted the color guard didn't have all of their stuff on. It was just the core that had their uniforms on. They had the props out there. The level of difficulty of what Spirit of Atlanta is doing is top 12 worthy, easily. They are doing some really hard stuff. Now, granted, it's not SEV, Boston, Crown, that level. But from what they did last year, it is a whole lot more difficult. And they are doing such a great job. I said this last year when I saw them in person twice. I felt like if the book was more difficult, they could have made top 12 last year. And I think with it now being difficult and with how the group is pulling it off, and this, again, this was the very first show they did in front of people last night. Just right now, they have the wheels to get to top 12 and probably make 11th or 10th. I just haven't seen the Blue Knights yet. And the reason for that is I did see the scores for Drums Along the Rockies. And I believe the Blue Devils obviously won. Troopers got second and Blue Knights got third. So, given where all those scores ranked last night, again, Spirit of Atlanta couldn't compete against them because, different areas. But from what I have heard and what I've seen, the Blue Knights, they're going to make top 10. And from the little bitty pieces that I have heard of from Blue Knights, I think top 10 is absolutely in the horizon for the Blue Knights. Now, this next slide might piss some people off, okay? I'm just going to give a fair warning. This one might be the one that gets me some hate that says, Andrew, you're a poser. You're a LARPer. You use buzzwords. Whatever. I don't care. I'm not going to fight fire with fire because why would I? Anyways, ninth through fourth. In ninth place, I have the Troopers. In eighth, I have Cavaliers. In seventh, I have the Blue Stars. Now, you're wondering why do I have a gap in between? Because out of all of the years we've had for DCI, top six, this is the most competitive top six I think I've seen in a very long time. I think out of all of the years we've had recently post COVID, this is the most competitive year for drum corps because everyone is doing some really difficult stuff. Everyone is doing double tonguing. They're doing triple tonguing. They're moving a lot more than how they used to. Their ballads are a lot more melodic. The way the shows are being developed, it just feels like everyone is doing some stupidly difficult stuff and they're pulling it off. Sorry, my nose is running. But from what I have seen so far, Phantom Regiment in sixth, Blue Devils in fifth, Crown is in fourth. Now, some of you are wondering why. Why am I hating on Phantom Regiment? Why am I hating on the Blue Devils? Why am I hating on Crown? Oh, Andrew, why do you not think the Blue Stars are going to make top five? Why do you listen? I have seen the Troopers a little bit. I've seen pieces. I've seen the whole thing. Cavaliers, I was going to see their show until it rained, so they had to bring it inside. So I heard the music, right? Blue Stars I've not seen, but I have now seen Phantom Regiment, Blues, Devils, and Crown. I've seen Phantom Regiment twice. I've seen Crown. I haven't seen them once or twice. I've seen them once because it rained. And I've seen the Blue Devils once now. I saw the well, it got leaked. Drums All Over Rocky got leaked in this part. I think it's the other. Anyways, long story short. From what I've seen so far, I like what Phantom Regiment is doing stylistic wise. It's just they got a lot to clean. The Blue Devils, I feel like they're a different story. They've gotten a lot better compared to last year. Sorry, the lights in my eyes. Deal with it. The Blue Devils are in fifth place because I feel like this show is a whole lot better than last year. Early on, I was worried about how the Blue Devils were going to pull off what they did. Also, they had that trailer fire, which is just unfortunate. But from what the leaked show that I saw with the Blue Devils, it is so much better. The Blue Devils this year, it is so much better than last year. The percussion has some cleaning to do, but that's early season stuff. They'll be fine. The brass is still really good. They could compete for an OT. We'll see. But just show design wise, just the overall elements of what they're doing this year compared to last year is leagues better. It is so much better this year. I'm such a fan of what they're doing this year. However, as we have all seen from Crown Live, Carolina Crown is going to make fourth only because, not that I don't think they can make top three. I honestly don't think Crown's going to win. I just don't see that. However, Carolina Crown is probably one of the most improved groups in DCI this year. Carolina Crown, I felt like was in that sense of, oh, they could make seventh or sixth. And they were kind of in that phase of, okay, I think people have just caught up to Carolina Crown. They might slide more. Even I said there's a chance they make seventh or eighth this year. But from what I have seen, that's not going to happen. They're making top five confidently. The brass is so much more aggressive. Show design wise, it's so innovative. It kind of does remind me of Blue Devils. I just feel like the Carolina Crown staff got together and said, what can we do to make this year's show so much better? And they did it. Carolina Crown, in general, they sound incredible. They sound amazing. The difficulty of what they're doing is so much better. Visually, they're doing a lot of Blue Devils type stuff. And I even think, from what seen right now, Carolina Crown has the wheels to beat the Blue Devils. And some people think that Carolina Crown could win the Brass Award. I'm going a different direction. I don't think they do because of the other three, well, the other three groups that I've heard. Now, in third place, I have the Blue Coats. I saw their preview show last night. The show that the Blue Coats are doing this year literally feels like take the last 10 years of what the Blue Coats have done plus 2014, and you have this year's show. Every other group that I have seen, they've scaled back on the props. They've scaled back on the craziness of what they're doing. They've scaled back on the use of props. The Blue Coats, however, this year basically said, screw you, we're making our props a lot more extravagant and a lot more interesting. They have gigantic seesaws. They have like satellite little things on the fields with the things that keep spinning. The uniforms they went with would make an old head die because of how crazy they are. The drum major uniforms, they have yellow with like a cyan helmet and a red feather. Like everything this year about the blue coats is so out of left field, but it works because it's the blue coats. And while I am a massive, massive fan of the blue coats, I just think the two groups ahead of them are so difficult, and they're pulling it off on such a huge level to where, not that I don't think the blue coats could do better than third, it's just from what I have heard and from the vibe I got from the show so far, I do think the blue coats, the highest they could get is third. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just Boston and SCV, those are going to be the two that compete for finals this year to try to get to championship. But the Blue Coats ballad is the best ballad I've heard so far this year. I love the ballad. I love everything the Blue Coats are doing this year. They are pulling off such amazing things. But with that being said, in second, I have the Boston Crusaders. Only because I've not seen the show yet. I've heard the opener. I've not seen them in uniform. But from what they did with the concert in the park, the Crusaders, they're like usually when a group wins, because they won last year. Usually when a group wins, it's like, okay, they might get fourth or fifth and fall down, kind of like what we've seen previously with other groups. However, I don't think that's going to happen. The percussion is absolutely elite. The brass section is getting better and better. I think they won the Ott last year, too. I'm pretty sure they won brass last year. I don't think it was Blue Coats that won brass. I know the Blue Coats won GE. I think the Blue Coats will win GE, by the way. But I do think, as far as visual, as far as brass, as far as general effect, as far as percussion, it is going to be a slog between Boston and SCV, which means my first place champion is still SCV. I had them as my previous DCI 2026 predictions winner. I have that video if you want to go see that. But I'm bringing up SCV now because they, the level of difficulty that SCV is doing, the show itself, the brass, the color guard, the visual, the use of ropes. They let, like, everything SCV thought of this year. When I saw them doing what they're doing, it blew my mind. I'm like, there's no way SCV pulling off a perfect show. Like, obviously, it's not going to get a perfect score. However, I think brass wise, I think SCV wins brass. I'm sold on that brass section. I am so sold on the visuals, on the difficulty of that brass book, the way they're moving and playing. They're using jump ropes, for crying out loud, and they're yellow jump ropes with red uniforms. Like, I saw that and I'm just like, this is so creative. And like, the thing with Vanguard is they haven't, like, since they've come back in 24, they've not really used props at all. And this year, their props is a literal jump rope. Like, it's kind of like what Boston did last year with the pipes and the silver balls. Vanguard using yellow ropes to be seen on the show is so smart. It's insane. Now, I do think Boston could win percussion, but SCV, the difficulty is there. The execution's already there, and they've only had one show. So I think, with that being said, SCV wins brass, SCV wins percussion. Blue Coats, they win general effect. Boston wins color guard. Visual, right now, because I haven't seen Boston, I think SCV wins visual. And with that being said, I think SCV wins their I can't remember how many championships SCV's won. I think this might be their second. I cannot remember. Either way, they're going to win this year. I'm confident on that. What do you think about these predictions down below? Comment down below. What are you excited about for this season? What group do you like? What group do you want to see improve? What group do you want to see higher or lower? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like and subscribe because we're doing some really cool DCI stuff here at DCI Bro. And if you want to check out my last brass rankings video, check this video out up here. You will not want to miss it.